I served a divorced mom who made me set up her white noise machine in the middle of our restaurant and called me a whore for bringing her water. When she started bragging about sexualizing her 9-year-old daughter to get back at her gay ex-husband, my boss called CPS. She retaliated by scratching BTCH into my car, getting me doxxed by local mom groups, and suing everyone while her new gym bro boyfriend led a social media campaign to destroy our restaurant. I got paid to feed annoying bitches all day long because I worked in a restaurant in the middle of Silicon Valley, right beside an elementary school. It was always the same crowd, MILFs with designer bags, expensive blowouts, never tipped more than 10%. But one woman, Delana, was the worst of all. She once brought in a black duffel bag and put it right in the middle of the restaurant. "Can I get some effing service?" she yelled, with her 9-year-old daughter standing beside her red with embarrassment. I immediately ran over to her, and that's when she handed me a long black cable. "This is a white noise machine. Without it, I can't eat properly." I stared at her in disbelief. "What are you waiting for, Christmas? Hurry up and plug it in." Every part of me wanted to take the black cord and tie it around her neck, but my boss Maria was standing right there, so instead I just told her about it. "Go help the woman and plug it in," she said, her voice cold and assertive. So I did, but the whole thing made me overthink, because usually Maria was one of those chill bosses, the type to let you VP during closing time. And as I stood there, setting up a white noise machine that was disturbing the entire restaurant, Delana kept going. In just 5 minutes, she managed to pinch my thighs and offer weight loss tips, complain about water spots on the forks, and turn off the light switch because it was too unflattering. And when I was finally done taking her order of a plate of lettuce with exactly 1 cherry tomato, Maria finally opened her mouth and said something that explained everything. Turns out, that crusty white bitch Delana was going through a divorce. Her husband had cheated on her with another man. TBH, it made complete sense, because if I was with Delana, I would turn into a person too. And I guess Maria saw the glimmer in my eye, because she immediately told me that we had to have empathy towards her. I was annoyed, but at the same time, Maria's kindness is why I loved her so much in the first place. So I just nodded and tried to force myself to be nice. The next day, Delana came in looking rougher than usual, hair slightly frizzed, makeup smudged like she'd been crying in her Tesla. I almost felt bad for calling her a dollar store Kardashian behind her back. Keyword is almost, because as soon as I brought her water, she grabbed my wrist. Turns out she had a gift for me. It was an at-home STD testing kit. I know exactly what your type is like. Your innocent eyes and smile might fool the little boys in your school, but I know a W word when I see one. Her eyes were filled with insanity. I glanced over at her daughter who looked like she was going to cry. I wanted to slap Delana across the face, but Maria caught my eye from across the room. She was giving me that damn empathy look again. So I just said, "I'm clean, ma'am," through gritted teeth and walked away. But Delana wasn't finished yet. She came back the next day, again setting up her effing white noise machine. I was right on the verge of culling myself when my favorite couple came in, Andrew and Steven. They always tipped 40% and let me have a bite of their food too. But Delana took one look and lost her shot. She stood up so fast her chair scraped against the floor. "This is a family establishment." The whole restaurant went silent. Andrew tried to ignore her, but Steven looked like he was ready to fight. "It's bad enough my husband decided to become one of them." She pointed a manicured finger at their table. "But now I have to watch this." While I'm trying to eat, Maria rushed over, apologizing to the couple, trying to calm Delana down. I heard her whispering about going through a hard time, and "please understand." Andrew and Steven nodded their heads slowly, but they still ended up leaving. Sigh. Maria practically had to get on her hands and knees to stop me from quitting, and she got me a mango jewel too, so I stayed. And the next day, Delana came in with a huge smile on her face, wearing a slutty maid costume in the middle of summer. She looked so happy I thought she got DA'd down. The truth was much, much darker. "Guess what?" Delana announced to no one in particular. "My daughter is finally a woman." That's when her daughter appeared, in a dress that matched Delana's. My jaw dropped so hard I thought it was going to snap. Delana continued louder. "She's becoming such a little heartbreaker. Probably getting even more action than you," she exclaimed, now pointing right at me. I felt sick. This woman was bragging about sexualizing her daughter to prove some twisted point about her gay ex-husband. That's when Maria finally snapped. She walked over to Delana's table with this eerily calm expression. "Set down the check folder. Delana, I've been patient with you. We all have. But this ends now." "Excuse me?" Delana's voice went sharp. "For the past 6 months, every time you've eaten here and tormented my staff, I've matched your bill and donated it to an LGBT charity." The restaurant was dead silent. "In your name, of course. You've contributed over $3,000 to help gay kids. They're sending you a thank you plaque. I hope this has taught you a lesson." The whole thing was funny AF, but TBH, I was still a little disappointed, because Delana's daughter still needed serious help. But Maria always pulls through, because that's when CPS walked in the door. 2 CPS workers stepped through the restaurant door, their badges visible on lanyards around their necks. The taller one, a woman with graying hair pulled back in a tight bun, scanned the dining room before her eyes landed on our table. Delana's daughter immediately ducked behind me, her small fingers gripping my apron as she whispered something that made my blood run cold. The words came out so quiet I almost missed them, but the desperation in her voice was unmistakable. She was begging me not to let them take her to foster care. My heart hammered as I felt her trembling against my back. Delana's entire demeanor shifted in an instant. The smug satisfaction from moments before vanished, replaced by something I'd never seen from her. A perfect mother act. Her hands shook slightly as she smoothed down her inappropriate outfit and plastered on a warm smile. She stood up gracefully, approaching the CPS workers with open arms. Her voice dripped honey as she welcomed them to our establishment, insisting they must try our famous lunch special, on the house of course. The transformation was so complete it made my skin crawl. This was a woman who'd spent months tormenting everyone in sight, now playing the gracious hostess. Maria stepped forward, her expression neutral but determined. She informed the CPS workers that the restaurant had been recording for security purposes for the past 3 months. Everything was saved on their system, and she'd be happy to provide any footage they needed for their investigation. The dining room erupted in whispers. Several patrons pulled out their phones, and I could see the TikTok app opening on multiple screens. The younger CPS worker, a man who couldn't have been much older than me, quickly warned everyone that posting anything online could compromise their investigation. The phones lowered reluctantly, but I knew at least a few people were still recording discreetly. Delana's daughter pressed harder against my back, her grip on my apron tightening. I stood frozen, torn between my instinct to comfort this scared child and my need to support Maria's evidence claims. The little girl's fingers found my hand, squeezing desperately. I squeezed back without thinking, trying to offer some small comfort. Delana's eyes narrowed as she noticed our joined hands. hands, but before she could comment, her phone rang. She answered it with barely contained fury, and I realized she'd put it on speaker without meaning to. Marcus's voice filled the restaurant. She screamed at him to call off his conspiracy, accusing him of orchestrating this whole thing. The entire restaurant could hear every word as she ranted about how he'd coached the staff to destroy her. Her daughter finally found her voice, begging both parents to stop fighting. The pain in that small voice made several customers look away uncomfortably. We moved outside to the parking lot, the CPS workers gently but firmly directing the conversation away from the other diners. The male CPS worker mentioned something that made Delana go rigid. They'd already received reports from the school. Her daughter had written essays describing something called Mommy's Special Modeling Games. Delana's perfect mother mask slipped for just a moment before she redirected her fury at me. She pointed at our still joined hands, her voice rising as she accused me of having an inappropriate interest in her daughter. The accusation hit like a physical blow, and I immediately released the child's hand, stepping back. Marcus must have still been on the phone because his voice cut through Delana's rant. He mentioned his partner James had been receiving threatening texts from her for weeks, messages about turning their daughter against what she called inappropriate influences. He promised to forward everything to CPS. The situation spiraled faster than I could process. The CPS workers announced they were placing the daughter with Marcus temporarily while they investigated. They'd seek an emergency order within 72 hours. Delana's scream was primal, her body crumpling to the asphalt. Someone must have called 911 because an ambulance arrived within minutes, paramedics rushing to check on her. As I watched them load her onto a gurney, her daughter clinging to Marcus who'd arrived during the chaos, a cold realization washed over me. I was now a key witness in what would clearly become a drawn-out custody battle. This wasn't ending today, or next week, or even next month. 3 days later, I discovered just how right I was. Walking to my car after my morning shift, I found deep scratches spelling out a word that made my stomach turn. The paint was gouged all the way to the metal, and I knew it would cost hundreds to fix. My roommate texted me screenshots from local Facebook mom groups. Delana's mother had posted my photo, along with some very creative interpretations of what had happened at the restaurant. The restaurant's Yelp page became a battlefield overnight. One-star reviews flooded in, all claiming we traumatized divorced mothers and destroyed families. Several included photos of me that must have been taken without my knowledge. Maria spent hours on the phone with Yelp support, trying to get them removed. My roommate cornered me in our kitchen that evening, concern etched on their face. They wanted to know how long this harassment might continue, whether I was safe, whether we should consider moving. I didn't have answers. I'd just been trying to do my job, and now my entire life was being turned upside down. Maria called me into her office the next day. She looked exhausted, stress lines I'd never noticed before creasing her forehead. She revealed something that shocked me. She'd been documenting Delana's behavior for months. She had recordings, photos, detailed notes, but her lawyer had warned her that some of it might constitute illegal wiretapping. The corporate franchise owner called while I was still in her office. I could hear the man's voice through the phone, pressuring Maria to fire me to distance the brand from the scandal. Maria's knuckles went white as she gripped the receiver, but she held firm. She wouldn't abandon her staff. A week later, things escalated again. A process server walked into the restaurant during the lunch rush, handing out cease and desist letters to every staff member. Delana's lawyer was claiming defamation, demanding we all stop discussing her client. The irony wasn't lost on me. The woman who'd spent months publicly humiliating everyone was now crying victim. The local news picked up the story, but not the way we'd hoped. The segment painted Delana as a struggling divorced mother, victimized by a heartless restaurant staff. They interviewed her outside her lawyer's office, tears streaming down her face as she talked about just wanting to eat in peace with her daughter. My phone rang that night. My parents had seen the news segment. My mother's voice was strained as she begged me to stop ruining that poor woman's life. She reminded me how I always dramatized everything, how I needed to learn when to just let things go. The accusations stung more than Delana's scratches on my car. Marcus's lawyer reached out the next day. They wanted my testimony but warned me about Delana's patterns. She had a history of scorched earth tactics and conflicts, destroying anyone who crossed her. The lawyer's words were meant as caution, but they felt more like a threat. One of my coworkers pulled me aside in the kitchen. She looked miserable as she admitted her childcare situation. Delana's mother had been watching her kids for years. She couldn't afford other options. She begged me to let it go, to think about how many people were being affected. The guilt was suffocating. Maria discovered something disturbing while reviewing security footage. A private investigator had been photographing our staff cars, following employees to their homes. Delana's mother had hired him to dig into our social media, our backgrounds, anything that could be used against us. 3 weeks into the nightmare, my past came back to haunt me. Delana's amended court filing mentioned an arrest from my college days, a minor devil's lettuce possession charge I'd thought was sealed. Her lawyer painted it as evidence of my substance history, suggesting I wasn't a credible witness. 6 weeks after CPS first walked through our door, a judge made their initial ruling. Despite the CPS concerns, despite the evidence we'd provided, Delana was granted supervised visitation. The judge cited lack of concrete evidence of immediate danger. I felt sick watching Delana's triumphant smile as she left the courthouse. The victory emboldened her. She started dating a local gym trainer who seemed very interested in the restaurant situation. He began posting on social media, asking his followers about their thoughts on the crazy restaurant story. The narrative was shifting, and not in our favor. I spotted them together at the coffee shop across from the restaurant during my break. Delana and her new gym trainer boyfriend sat at a corner table, their heads bent together over his phone. He kept glancing up at the restaurant, then typing furiously. My stomach churned as I watched him screenshot something and show it to her. She smiled that same triumphant smile from the courthouse. The gym trainer's social media campaign gained traction quickly. Within days, his posts about the restaurant situation had hundreds of comments. People shared stories about overzealous restaurant workers, about false CPS reports, about innocent mothers being targeted. Each comment felt like another nail in our coffin. My Instagram became a minefield. Every story I posted, no matter how innocent, ended up screenshotted and reframed. A photo of my morning coffee became evidence of my unstable lifestyle. A picture with friends at a bar turned into proof of my party habits. I started second-guessing every post, every photo, every caption. The restaurant phone rang constantly now. Most callers hung up immediately, but some left messages, threats, insults, accusations. Maria had to change the voicemail system 3 times. The stress showed on everyone's faces. Our newest server jumped every time the door opened. During a particularly busy lunch rush, the phone rang again. This time, a small voice asked for me specifically. My hands trembled as I recognized Delana's daughter. She spoke quickly, nervously, explaining that her mother mother had made her practice what to tell the judge. She described rehearsing lines about how happy she was, how the restaurant people were mean to her mommy. Maria's recording system had captured the entire call. We both knew it was crucial evidence, but using it would mean violating a child's privacy. The little girl had reached out to me, trusted me with this information. How could I betray that trust? But how could I not, when it might help protect her? Delena's influence spread beyond social media. She'd joined the same country club as our landlord, and suddenly he started asking questions about tenant behavior. He mentioned concerns about the restaurant's reputation affecting property values. His casual conversations carried underlying threats. The health inspector arrived on a Tuesday morning, clipboard in hand. An anonymous complaint had been filed about staff mental stability affecting food safety. He scrutinized everything, asked pointed questions about our hiring practices, our background checks, our mental health policies. We passed, but barely. My therapy sessions, which I'd started years ago for general anxiety, became ammunition. Delena's lawyer subpoenaed my records, twisting discussions about work stress into evidence of anger management issues. Private conversations with my therapist about feeling overwhelmed were reframed as signs of instability. Delena's mother began volunteering at the elementary school next door. She made sure to mention to other volunteers, to teachers, to anyone who would listen, that I was dangerous around children. Parents started giving me suspicious looks during the afternoon rush. Some pulled their kids closer when I walked by. The background check for my court testimony revealed something I'd forgotten about. Months before the CPS incident, Delena had filed a police report claiming someone was loitering suspiciously near her car. The description matched me perfectly. She'd been building a paper trail before any of this started. Our best server, Alexandra, handed in her notice on a Wednesday. She couldn't handle the daily protesters anymore. They'd started showing up with signs reading "Stop separating families" and "Mothers have rights too." They filmed everyone entering and leaving, shouting questions about why we hated divorced women. Marcus pulled me aside after one of the supervised exchanges. His face was grim as he revealed something that made my blood run cold. Years ago, Delena had tried to coach their daughter to claim James had touched her inappropriately. Only Marcus's quick action and a child psychologist's intervention had prevented disaster. She would say anything to win. My social media stalker problem intensified. Fake accounts popped up constantly, following me, commenting support on every harassment post about me. The profiles looked real at first glance, but closer inspection revealed they were all created recently. All followed the same accounts. All used similar language. Delana was building an army. The supervised exchange at the neutral location turned violent. Delana accidentally spilled hot coffee on me, then immediately started screaming that I'd assaulted her when I jumped back. Security footage was inconclusive, showing only the aftermath. My burned arm throbbed for days, but filing a complaint would only fuel her narrative. Maria made the difficult decision to reduce my hours, not as punishment, but for everyone's safety. The other staff members were getting nervous, worried about being caught in the crossfire. I understood, but it still hurt. My income dropped just as my expenses rose. The CPS worker met me privately in the courthouse hallway. She looked defeated as she explained their position. Without physical abuse evidence, the case was weak. Emotional abuse was harder to prove, harder to prosecute. She suggested documenting future incidents carefully, building a stronger case over time. Time the daughter might not have. My investigation into Delana's past revealed a pattern. Her previous apartment complex had multiple noise complaints about a child crying extensively, late-night disturbances, neighbors reporting sounds of distress. This is getting absolutely terrifying. The way Delena's destroying everything, from the car scratches to weaponizing social media, to even using her own daughter as a pawn in this twisted game. But the property manager refused to testify, not wanting to get involved in a custody battle. The evidence mounted but remained useless. Each piece required witness testimony, cooperation, people willing to stand up in court. Most preferred to stay silent, to protect themselves from Delena's wrath. The system protected those who stayed quiet and punished those who spoke up. Maria's business partner, Sebastian, confronted her in the office. Their heated discussion carried through the walls. He begged her to stop destroying their restaurant for strangers, to think about their employees, their future. Maria wavered. I could see it in her eyes later. The weight of responsibility was crushing her. She spent hours that night rewatching security footage, the expressions on Delana's daughter's face, the fear in her eyes, the way she flinched at her mother's sudden movements. Maria's resolve hardened again. Some things were worth fighting for, even if it cost everything. My paranoia grew daily. Every blonde woman in designer clothes made me jump. Every Tesla in the parking lot sent my heart racing. I started taking different routes home, checking my mirrors constantly, documenting every possible Delena sighting. I was becoming a mirror of her obsession. A server from the restaurant next door approached me tentatively. She'd seen something months ago, Delena striking her daughter in the mall bathroom. She'd wanted to say something but feared getting involved. Now, seeing everything unfold, guilt consumed her. She agreed to testify if we could protect her from retaliation. We both knew that was a promise I couldn't keep. Delena's new lawyer specialized in father's rights cases. Ironic given the situation. He knew every local judge's biases, every legal loophole, every trick to paint mothers as victims of an unfair system. He strutted through the courthouse like he owned it, because in many ways he did. The daughter's therapist wanted to report concerns, but faced a familiar problem. Delena had therapists shopped until finding one who supported her narrative. Professional opinions canceled each other out, leaving the child trapped in the middle. The system designed to protect her had become another weapon in her mother's arsenal. My bank account drained rapidly. Moving costs after the harassment forced relocation, security deposits, lawyer consultation fees. The reduced hours at work meant less income just when I needed it most. Pride kept me from asking for help until I had no choice. Marcus offered to cover my lost wages for court appearances. Part of me suspected it was guilt money, his way of apologizing for bringing this chaos into our lives. But desperation won over pride. I accepted, hating myself for needing it, hating him for offering it. Delena's Instagram stories during supervised exchanges showed a masterclass in manipulation. She posted videos of normal customer service at the restaurant, carefully edited to remove any confrontations. Comments poured in supporting the persecuted mother just trying to eat lunch with her child. Regular customers started avoiding us. The association with that custody battle place hurt business more than any Yelp review. Empty tables during rush hours told the story better than any spreadsheet. We were winning the moral battle but losing the war. Andrew and Steven returned unexpectedly on a Thursday afternoon. They'd been documenting Delena's behavior at their boutique too. She'd followed them there, caused scenes, made homophobic comments to other customers. They had security footage, witness statements, a pattern of harassment beyond just our restaurant. My testimony prep with Marcus's lawyer revealed painful truths. I hadn't reported the physical pinching everything immediately, thinking it wasn't serious enough. That delay now undermined my credibility. Every small decision I'd made to avoid conflict now worked against us. My coworker who depended on Delena's mother for childcare struggled with expensive alternatives. She could barely make ends meet with the new arrangements. Her exhaustion and stress were palpable. She never said it directly, but I knew she blamed me. This was my fault too. Maria's longest-serving employee, Benjamin, quit without notice. His resignation letter cited the toxic environment, the constant stress, the way advocacy had consumed the workplace. He'd worked there for 8 years, through every challenge, but this had broken him. The deposition felt like character assassination. I had to admit to calling Delana names, to joking about her with coworkers, to every moment of frustration and anger. My words, taken out of context, painted me as vindictive and unstable. The truth became a weapon against itself. Security footage enhancement revealed what we'd missed for weeks. Delena's daughter had been mouthing "help me" to me long before the CPS call. Subtle cries for help that I'd been too busy, too frustrated, too focused on my own problems to notice. The guilt ate at me. Why hadn't I seen it then? Delena's lawyer filed motions claiming the footage was digitally manipulated. He brought in experts to testify about deep fakes, about AI technology, about how easy it was to create false evidence. The truth became negotiable. Reality subject to interpretation. Financial documents revealed Delena's real motivations. Keeping her daughter meant keeping the house, the alimony, the control over Marcus's life. The child was a pawn in a financial game, a tool for revenge against the man who'd left her. But underneath the manipulation lay genuine belief. She truly thought she was protecting her daughter from the gay agenda. The betrayal cut deepest when I had to testify about things the daughter had told me. Her trust, freely given in a moment of desperation, now violated in open court. She sat in the gallery, her eyes meeting mine, the look of betrayal clear. I was just another adult who'd failed her. My transformation was complete. The carefree server who just wanted to do her job was gone. In her place stood someone who documented everything obsessively, who trusted no one, who saw potential threats everywhere. Delana had won that battle, changing me into someone I didn't recognize. I convinced another parent to testify about concerning behavior at playdates. She'd noticed bruises, heard disturbing comments, worried about the daughter's well-being, but fear of Delena's retaliation made her hesitant. It took hours of conversation, promises I couldn't keep, appeals to her maternal instincts. Small victories felt hollow. When the judge ordered extended supervision, Delana sobbed genuine tears. For all her manipulation and cruelty, she was still a mother losing access to her child. Even monsters felt pain. The complexity of human emotion made simple villains impossible. Delana's counterclaim gained disturbing traction. The narrative of a traditional divorced mother targeted by a woke restaurant resonated with certain groups. Online forums dissected every piece of evidence, finding conspiracies where none existed. The truth drowned in a sea of competing narratives. Everything hinged on the daughter's in-camera testimony with the judge. A 9-year-old child held the power to determine her own fate, forced to choose between parents, between truth and loyalty, between safety and love. The weight of that decision would shape her forever. A school friend's mother approached me at a school event. She relayed a question that broke my heart. The daughter had asked her friend's mom why I had to tell, why I couldn't have just let things be. The child understood the cost of intervention, even if she needed it. The restaurant staff split into factions. Half believed Maria had gone too far, that we should have minded our own business. The other half thought we hadn't done enough, that we should have acted sooner. The division poisoned workplace relationships, turned allies into enemies. The judge's ruling on emotional abuse came down like a hammer, unproven, despite all our evidence. The system protected parental rights over children's welfare, legal precedent over human suffering. Supervision would continue for parental conflict, not for protection. Marcus's lawyer called in favors, bringing in a guardian ad litem who owed their career to them. Even justice required political maneuvering, personal connections, the same corruption we fought against. The system's hypocrisy was suffocating. The guardian's report was honest but limited, concerning but not criminal behavior, red flags but not smoking GNs. Professional language sanitized the daughter's pain, reduced her suffering to bureaucratic categories. The child's reality disappeared into legal frameworks. The daughter's essays surfaced during the guardian's home visit. She'd written about her Sunday school teacher, Ms. Jenny, being the only adult who really listened to her. Page after page filled with careful documentation, dates, and times when things happened. The guardian's hands trembled as she read through them. More shocking was the discovery of a diary hidden under the daughter's mattress. She'd been documenting incidents for months, hoping someone would find it. Each entry showed a child trying to build her own case, collecting evidence the way she'd seen adults do it on TV shows. The diary entries were admitted as evidence over Delena's privacy objections. The courtroom fell silent as the guardian read them aloud. Night after night of the daughter comforting her mother instead of sleeping. Detailed accounts of missed school because mommy needed her to stay home and make her feel better. I sat in the gallery watching the daughter's face as her private thoughts became public record. She stared at her hands folded in her lap, shoulders hunched. The realization hit me hard. Justice meant accepting that this child had chosen protecting her mother over her own safety. She reminded me of myself at that age, always trying to fix my mom's problems. My commitment shifted that day. I would support whatever outcome the daughter could live with, not what seemed right to outsiders. The child had already sacrificed so much trying to manage her mother's emotions. She didn't need another adult imposing their version of justice. Delena's testimony began with confidence but quickly unraveled. She claimed she'd never brought her daughter to the restaurant after the separation, forgetting about her own Yelp reviews. Marcus's lawyer pulled up the reviews on a laptop, complete with photos Delana had posted of herself and her daughter at our tables. The timestamps proved she'd lied under oath. Maria took the stand next, presenting evidence with calm professionalism. No satisfaction showed on her face as she walked through months of security footage. She maintained dignity even when Delana's lawyer tried to paint her as vindictive. The pattern of escalating behavior became undeniable to everyone watching. Restaurant regulars filled the courtroom benches. Some came to support us, others to witness the drama. Delena's mom group occupied one entire section, whispering among themselves. Local media reporters scribbled notes in the back row. The small courtroom felt suffocating with so many bodies pressed together. Delena arrived the next morning in a conservative suit, but her hands still shook. I noticed she'd lost weight, her face gaunt under carefully applied makeup. The truth emerged through methodical presentation. This wasn't just about punishment. Delena needed help as much as her daughter needed protection. Her own mother took the stand reluctantly. Under questioning, she admitted their pastor had suggested Delena seek counseling months ago. She'd dismissed his concerns, not wanting to interfere. The generational pattern pattern became clear. A grandmother who'd ignored warning signs, now watching history repeat. The judge ordered a comprehensive psychological evaluation for Delana. She would undergo assessment by court-appointed professionals. The evaluation would determine the structure of future visitation. Therapeutic supervision would continue during the assessment period. Technical experts authenticated the restaurant's security footage, confirming no digital manipulation. Months of incidents played on the courtroom monitors, not just isolated events, but a clear pattern of escalation. The evidence proved emotional harm, while also revealing Delana's own trauma responses. Delana broke down during the final day of testimony. Through sobs, she admitted she'd become her mother, critical, controlling, unable to see how her behavior affected others. She insisted she could change, begging for another chance. The raw emotion felt genuine even to those of us who'd suffered her abuse. The guardian ad litem asked for my input on supervision terms. I thought carefully before responding. The daughter needed her mother to get better, not disappear from her life. I recommended therapeutic reunification with strict oversight, gradual progression toward normalcy if Delana showed genuine change. Joint custody was maintained, but with modifications. Marcus would have primary residence while Delana received therapeutic supervision. The arrangement acknowledged both parents' importance while prioritizing the child's safety. It wasn't perfect, but it reflected the messy reality of family dynamics. The restaurant community divided over the verdict. Some saw justice in the court's decision. Others viewed it as a family destroyed by outside interference. Half our regular customers stopped coming, unable to separate the business from the controversy. The financial impact was immediate and severe. I returned to work fundamentally changed. Every interaction got documented in a notebook I carried constantly. Trust had become foreign to me. The carefree server who'd started this journey was gone, replaced by someone hyper-vigilant and guarded. But I'd done the right thing, even if the cost was high. The final court orders included mandatory therapy for Delana, intensive parenting classes, and substance testing. Supervised visits would gradually increase if she showed progress. The daughter would have her own therapist to process everything. A family coordinator would oversee the entire process. Maria struggled to keep the restaurant afloat. Sebastian had withdrawn his investment, citing the controversy. She took out personal loans to cover expenses. The staff worked reduced hours, everyone feeling the financial strain. Some blamed me, though they tried to hide it. Delana's first supervised visit under the new order happened 3 weeks later. She arrived early, sitting in her car until the exact appointment time. Her appearance had improved. Hair neat, outfit appropriate, makeup subtle. The supervisor noted her punctuality in their report. The daughter approached these visits cautiously. She'd learned to protect herself emotionally, keeping conversations surface level. They colored together, played board games, avoided difficult topics. Progress was slow but measurable. The supervisor reported no concerning incidents. I encountered them at a park during one visit. The daughter waved at me tentatively. Delana's jaw tightened, but she nodded acknowledgement. We didn't speak, but the moment felt significant. Boundaries were being respected. Change was possible, even if gradual. Marcus adjusted to full-time parenting with James's help. They enrolled the daughter in activities, established routines, created stability. She started sleeping through the night again. Her grades improved. Teachers reported increased engagement and fewer emotional outbursts. The Facebook mom groups gradually moved on to new controversies. Delana's mother stopped posting about me. The harassment slowed, then stopped. My car remained unvandalized for a full month. Life began feeling less like a battlefield. Andrew and Steven became regulars again, their presence helping normalize the restaurant. They brought friends, recommended us to others, tried to rebuild what had been lost. Their loyalty meant everything during those difficult months. Maria gave them permanent reserved seating as thanks. 3 months into the new arrangement, Delana's progress was undeniable. Her therapist reported genuine engagement with treatment. She'd started acknowledging how her behavior had affected others. The victim narrative was slowly being replaced by accountability. The daughter's therapy revealed the depth of parentification she'd experienced. Years of managing her mother's emotions had left scars, but children are resilient. With proper support, she began acting like a kid again. Her laughter returned to the supervised visits. Maria made the difficult decision to sell the restaurant. The controversy had damaged its reputation beyond repair. A chain bought the location, promising to keep current staff. It felt like defeat, but sometimes survival means accepting losses and moving forward. I found work at a different restaurant across town. The pay was less, but the environment was drama-free. My new coworkers didn't know my history. I could pretend to be normal, even if I still documented everything and trusted no one. 6 months after the court's decision, I was wiping down tables when familiar voices made me freeze. Delana and her daughter sat in a corner booth. It was an unsupervised visit. She'd progressed that far. They were sharing a pizza, the daughter chattering about school while Delana listened attentively. Our eyes met across the dining room. Delana's expression was unreadable. She raised her hand slightly, not quite a wave, more an acknowledgement. I nodded back. Her daughter noticed the interaction and smiled at me genuinely. They finished their meal peacefully. When they left, I found a 20% tip on the table. Not an apology, not forgiveness, just a normal transaction between a server and customer. The note on the receipt simply said, "Thank you." I stared at those 2 words, understanding their weight. The restaurant industry is small. Word spreads about difficult customers and problematic situations. Delana found herself unwelcome at several establishments. Consequences for her actions continued rippling outward, but she was working through them in therapy, learning accountability. I still carry the notebook, still document interactions that feel off, still struggle with trust. Some changes are permanent, but I sleep better knowing a child is safe, that her mother is getting help, that speaking up, despite the cost, was right. The last time I saw them together, the daughter was drawing with crayons while Delana watched, not performing for anyone, not making scenes, just existing as a family working toward healing. It wasn't a fairy tale ending, it was better. It was real. Watching everyone slowly heal and find their way forward fills my heart with so much hope. The way real change happened through hard work and therapy, not magic fixes, made this story feel so true and meaningful. Thanks for reading this amazing story with me. I hope you have a wonderful day filled with as much growth and healing as the OP did.